Drew, John Gaines has had a couple of games in there where it seems like he's done a pretty nice job. Like, what have you seen in his development? And I know a lot of people have talked about his intelligence, and how does that play into like how he plays the game?
Yeah, from a development standpoint, I think you're always going to get better with reps, or you'd like to think you are, and I think he has. I think he's learned from every rep he's gotten. I think he's competing at a high level. The intelligence shows up more from a communication standpoint, especially when you're on the road, silent count, center doesn't always have his eyes on the defense, so you need guys that are around him talking about what's going on, what the call is, what the adjustment is, whether it's a protection adjustment, something in the run game, something from a front structure standpoint. He does a great job of communicating, as do a lot of those guys on the interior of our offensive line. And then I think the physical piece is a big part of the development. Different matchups every week, different techniques, different scheme. I think he's done a nice job of handling that.
How hard is it to get a good grasp of what this offense really is or isn't when you have so many injuries throughout the depth chart?
There's a challenge to it, but I think that's the reality of the NFL. And to some extent, it's a week-to-week challenge, no matter whether you're healthy or not. I think every week in this league, you're looking at who you have, who they have, and the best way to put them out there and go be effective. And I think that's just kind of the nature of the beast.
With Gaines' intelligence that you're talking about, how much do you think that plays into the decreased pressure rates that you've allowed in the past week or two, kind of beyond just winning his one-on-one assignment?
Yeah, I'd like to think a huge part of it. When you get into those obvious pass situations, third and medium, third and long, some of those 2-minute situations, you're going to get some of those tough looks and some of those unique fronts and pressures. And the communication piece and making sure everybody's on the right page is a big part of that. And it's not just the upfront communication. It's them being on the same page. It's the quarterback knowing what they're doing and the running back and kind of all the different pieces that we tie into protection.
What does that look like? What is something that he might point out that maybe a lot of players might miss?
Yeah, I mean, and again, because of his nature of being a center, being a guard, he's also responsible as a backup center to make those calls and to be kind of the forefront of that. I guess one example of it to me would be a lot of times when you're on silent count, quarterback or center puts his head between his legs at times, depending on how we're trying to time up the cadence. And a lot of defenses will shift after the center puts his head between the legs. So there might be a call made, and then Yelda's down ready to snap the ball, and all of a sudden what he saw when he put his head away isn't what's there. And Gaines has got to be responsible to make that adjustment and make that communication, not only to Yelda, but could be the other side of the line, could be the tackle standing next to him, ultimately to the back and the quarterback as well. So all of that communication can be very important.
When it comes to Isaiah, what's been the biggest things you're noticing that may be a difference from the beginning of the year to now?
I think confidence, and I think you see it in the way, I think early on there was I hope I make the block, I hope I make the play, whereas now there's the expectation, like, I will make that play, I will make that block, and when I don't make it, I should have, not, I was trying to. And I think that's a big part of any player's growth, is that confidence of understanding that you belong out there and that you're ready and that you can go out there and win those one-on-ones and compete at a high level.
What did you see out of Josh Fryer and Devontae Jacobs kind of rotating into that left side?
Yeah. I thought they did a nice job. It was as tough a matchup as you're going to face in the National Football League. I mean, those are probably two of the best edge rushers we're going to see all year. We've seen some good ones, but they're as good, if not better, than anybody. I thought they did a great job of competing, won their fair share against, again, a very talented, both individuals, because I know those guys flip sides a little bit throughout the game. Communication, I thought we were on the same page. Didn't see a lot of mental errors or miscommunications, which is always good to see in those moments. So I was really pleased with that.
With both of those guys, JG was saying how impressed he was the fact that they were both doing the muscle tight end spot and then sliding over there to left tackle. Just how challenging is that to slide into a totally different role from being that muscle tight end to being that left tackle?
Yeah, both mentally and physically. I think from a mental aspect, it is. It's two different jobs. You're in different places in the run game, in protection. Try to limit the amount of calls that we can do in either, so that they have an ability to study that during the week. But I think Coach Fry and Coach Cook do a great job of meeting with those guys a little bit extra, getting those the reps, showing them the looks. Because reality is you're not going to get all the reps at either spot, which is just the nature of the game. And then I think from a physical standpoint, it's a small thing, but you're in a different place in protection in the run game than you normally are. So in protection, we talk about protecting the launch point. When you're standing at right tackle as opposed to the tight end spot, that is a different angle, a slightly different landmark, different space, which I think some guys struggle with and some guys handle really well, and I think those guys have done a nice job of handling it.
With Trey, there was a lot made last weekend about the Texans trying to take him away, and you guys found ways to do it. How much of when he's able to be successful, when teams are really focused on him, how much is that you guys were really working hard to come up with scheme and come up with ways to do it, and how much of that is him just winning and being a better player?
Both. I mean, he's as good a player as there is. So I can't take credit for everything he does on the field. I mean, I never could. In my mind, he probably the best tight end in the National Football League, was arguably the best player on the field on Sunday. And you know, yes, I think Ben Steele coaches it, we coach it, but a lot of that's him, his work ethic, his ability, and his desire to go out there and do it. From a scheme standpoint, you know, as we've talked about in here, we have to always want to get him the ball. Sometimes they can take that away. Sometimes they try to and can't. Sometimes it opens the door for other players. I think it's a combination of all three of those things. They did some things, you know, you saw early in the game. I think he was in line, maybe in the first, second play. DN's rushing, but rushing through him, making sure he's not getting a clean release off the line of scrimmage. Happened later in the game on third down. And that's something as a premier tight end, that's something you're always going to fight with, because they're going to find different ways to affect you with the front, to affect you with coverage. And he just does such a great job of staying patient, continuing to stick to his process throughout the game and not getting too frustrated, knowing that those plays are going to come. And then, you know, I think the unique thing that makes him so elite is when his number is called and he does create the matchup he wants, his ability to win and go get the football is second to none. And then when he does with it, when ball in hand, is unbelievable.
When you're calling plays for an offense that has a guy at that level, how do you balance kind of just doing what you do versus like, all right, this guy's on the field, I want to put him everywhere to make plays?
I think that's exactly what it is. You have to try to find that balance, and that balance is different every game based on the matchup, the scheme, and also what they may try to do to take them away, which is different every week. And there's not a great example when you watch an opponent of like, well, this is what they're going to do, because they haven't played Trey McBride. And they don't, you know, so they're going to do something different. They're going to change a little bit of what they do to try to do that. And you try to predict some of that, and you also say, hey, these are the things we're really good at. Let's move him around the formation and find different ways to get him the ball so he can affect the game. Or let's move him around the formation and find ways that we can get other people involved because of what it might do to them if he's in this spot or in that spot or affecting the game in that way.
You have to be careful not to overextend him in any way.
Absolutely. And I think that's a big thing. Maybe not overextending is not the right word, but 65, you know, what do we call 40 passes? Or like 40 passes can't go to Trey McBride as the first read. That would be very easy to some extent to take away, and sometimes he might be the third read, but I feel really good that if they take 1 and 2 away, that he's going to get the ball in an advantageous position for us. So it's always a balance there to try to manage that.
What does it say about his mentality that you guys were eliminated 2 weeks ago? He's obviously not playing for a starting job or anything. He's as entrenched as a player can be, and he's still kind of showing up like this.
Yeah, I think it's the mentality that everyone in that room has, which I really appreciate. I think it shows up every Sunday. I love the way that these guys come into the building after the game on Wednesday to practice, you know, throughout the week, and then they let it rip on Sunday. And that's a testament to them, and I think the competitive nature of him and the entire room. I know he's about that, and I know he's a leader in that room, and I think guys look up to that and respect that and feel the need to follow that, which is awesome.
Since Jacoby took over, how much has he kind of try to put his fingerprints on this offense and kind of on the game plan each week?
Jacoby, you're saying? Yeah, I'd like to think anybody who's a quarterback is putting a big imprint. I mean, it's a big part of the week is the communication between me and the guy with the ball in his hand, making sure that he's comfortable and seeing the game the way that I'm seeing it, making sure that I'm seeing it the way he's seeing it to some extent, so that when we're putting the plan together, when we're designing plays, when we're calling the game, that there's a rhythm to it and a reason that not only does I know I'm calling it, but he's feeling it, seeing it, and making those decisions in lockstep. I think that's such a big part of it. So, yeah, I think he's had a huge impact on that.
You said last week you, Izzy, and him get on three-way calls and chat. 2 parts to this. When do you usually do that, and kind of what are those calls?
It can happen during different times. You know, early in the week, we have some structured meetings and calls to just go over some of the basics of the game plan, see the way that things are going to be, kind of the beginning stage of, hey, here's how we want to attack them. Here's some things we might have up. Do you have any, you know, you started watching tape. Is there anything you're seeing or anything you want to do to make sure that we're incorporating that? And then as the week gets going, it's impromptu. You know, he watches a ton of tape, has a really thorough process. So it might be something right away that he says, hey, did you see, you know, go look at this play or these 2 plays. I know we talked about this. This makes me nervous, or I love that. Let's make sure we get that up in this area. And then after, you know, you've kind of digested the entire game plan, he has a process later in the week that's going to lead to more of those. And to say, you know, hey, kind of same concept. Now it's third down. Now it's red zone. Hey, what are you thinking about calling that? Or what are we thinking when we call this? Do I have an answer here? If we do, great. If not, let's try to create one or go a different direction, or maybe we scratch that play later in the week. I think so many of those conversations happen. And to him, but to all those guys, my phone has to be on all the time. Like if they see something or feel something, it needs to get heard, because I'm never going to be out there. I know that's a shock to a lot of people, but those guys are the ones on the field, and I think that's really important.
He's talking about he's texting receivers late at night. Is he texting you late at night too?
Oh, at all hours. And that's a great part of his process. And I think those conversations with the receivers, the tight ends, the backs, the center, the line are important, because they're all tied in together. Like if one guy doesn't understand what we're doing or why we're doing it, the whole play can fall apart. So I think he does such a great job of making, hey, and I've seen him doing, I know what he talks about, because we come in the next morning and we'll talk about it at times of, hey, did you see how so-and-so ran that route? Or we got this covered, you see where the corner is there, or the safety played it there. Just make sure you're thinking this or coming out of that angle. And so much of that communication shows up on Sunday and allows him to be effective in his role.
How much on Sunday did it impact what you were able to do offensively? That you're down 17-0 and you've only run 3 offensive plays.
Not what we want, but always going to feel like we have to go out there and go do our job to get us back in the game. And I felt like at times we were able to do that, and against a really good defense, at times they got the best of us. And that's always going to be my mindset. Is at the end of the day, if they have more points than us, I didn't do a good enough job. And I think that's everybody in the room has that mindset. I think it leads to that competitive nature of continuing to go out there and compete every single day. So that's kind of what I would say.
What areas do you see that you guys could have done better on Sunday?
Yeah.
20 points against a really good defense with a lot of backups. It seems, that's a solid number. Where could you have been better?
I think the number, you don't want to turn the ball over ever. I think that's always going to hurt you, especially when you're in a position to get points and kind of get yourself back in the game. I think that's probably one area. 2 minute, end of half, end of game, you're always going to want to, hey, could we have gotten points? Could we have done something a little bit different? But as you said, I think there was also a lot of positives. I think they've given up more than 20 points twice the whole year, only once at home. They're giving up about 280 yards a game. For a lot of the reasons you saw on tape. It's a great team. It's a great unit, great coached unit as well. I think anytime you fall short of your goal, you're going to look to things you could have done better.
With Jacoby, what's the latest you'll respond to him?
Literally anytime he's willing to text. I think that's an important, like, my job is to serve the players. And when they need something, I got to be there for them at all hours. Now, he probably goes to bed before I do and doesn't have young kids with him right now, so I'm up.
When it comes to Atlanta, what's standing out with them?
A number of different things. I think they've invested pretty heavily in the front here over the last 2 years, and I think you see some of that starting to come to fruition in the way those guys are ascending, as young players typically do up front. They're starting to figure out the NFL game, starting to understand how people are trying to attack them from a protection standpoint, attack them from a run game standpoint. So I think you see that showing up. I think the scheme's really impressive. It's very multiple in the way that they deploy their personnel and their front structures, how it mirrors with their coverages, the amount of pressures they bring. So just from a scheme standpoint, I think they present some obvious complications that you got to be able to handle. And then, they have premier players or really good players at all levels, but that back end, we played AJ 2 years ago. He's as good a corner as there is. I feel like I say this a lot, but I got away from Jesse. I got out of the division. I thought I was good, and then he shows up, and I got to play him twice in 3 years. It's a dynamic group. I think it's really well coached. I think we got a big challenge in front of us.
We talk a lot about when guys are coming back from injury, there's not necessarily a linear comeback for those guys. I'm curious, when you got a guy, let's say like Walter, who came back from the injury, got to play a little bit, then had the injury, so he misses a little bit of time. Is there linear progress on how you play, or can you suffer setbacks when you then miss a couple games or miss a couple weeks of practice?
From a health perspective or performance?
Not even knowing how to play. When he comes back in, is it one of those things where he kind of steps back into where he was, or especially given a guy like his age, is there, okay, we got to kind of readjust again because you missed a little bit of time, and so it's...
Yeah, I think it can be very variable, honestly. Guy to guy, or, sometimes it's hard to identify that maybe whether you played really good or really bad, that was the variable, right? Whoever that is. So that's really difficult to say. I do know that in this game, there is a sense of like I have a lot of rhythm right now, and that is real that you can lose that. And I think each guy can kind of pick that back up at different, just depending on the guy and maybe even the game plan and who you're playing against.
What did you see from Walt in his return game?
Did some good things, some things to improve on. He definitely goes up there and plays with motor and violence and helps us win games for certain.
Overall, with 40 points allowed now in 4 of the last 6 games, and I guess leave the Seattle game out because of the 2 fumble returns, but are there any commonalities that you're seeing over this stretch that's not allowing the defense to perform well?
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely not where we want to be, and I think it's a collection of all of us doing better. Better plans, better coaching, better details of how do we execute, we play, good technique. It's all of that, and then you got to go do it on Sundays. So it's nothing, no magic formula. You got to continue to move the needle in every area.
Run defense, JG mentioned he's looking for more consistency. What goes into that? What's the formula for that?
Honestly, it starts with mode of play. The thing that can stop anything, whether you have the perfect call up or the worst call up, is guys changing the math up front. And so it starts with that, and then it gets into, the different structures we can get into. The linebackers put a lot on their plate, being able to get us in and out of different things, technique, tackling, all of that goes into, and that's all stuff that we need to improve on.
JG talked about issues with zone distribution and pass coverage. Why do you think that's happening, and how do you prevent that?
Yeah, that happened a couple times. Guys know what they need to do if mistakes happen. I'm not concerned about that. That hasn't been a theme per se. Just a couple times that happened that past game, and we got to, refrain from that, allowing that to happen, because when we did play some zones, we forced them to get to his, second and third reads, and we can't be vacated at that point in the down.
What you said you don't think that's been a theme. What have been some themes?
In terms of,
is there anything that you've seen that's been a theme that maybe hasn't gotten fixed for a few weeks running now?
Yeah, we're not holding people to a low enough points.
Is there something that could be, because I know tackling is probably not to the level that you guys want it to be at right now. Is there something that could be done during practices that could help translate to in the game, or is it simply just as much as just technique and fundamentals? Yeah,
you got to practice tackling the right way. Not to say that you're bringing guys to the ground, but there's things that you can do, that we do during team periods that can prepare you for that situation, and then you got to go do it.
You guys in the locker room last week were saying how it doesn't matter what you guys say, it's on them to go out there and play, right? And you guys take a little bit of blame as the coaches, but it's on them. They feel like 40 points in 4 of the last 6 games. How much does that affect you? How much do you lose sleep? Like, what's that impact on you personally?
In terms of my sleep, to me, that's like resiliency. It's not going to change how I go about attacking each day. Whether you're shutting people out or you're giving up more points than you want, it's the National Football League, and you better give everything you have Monday through Sunday to try to win a game. So that'll never change. Obviously there's disappointment, but you better have quick resolve in order to bounce back and do what you need to do to help players prepare for the next game and put them in positions to go out there and execute and win a game.
The second play of the game to Nico, I assume sometimes he's going to get his 10 to 12-yard catches, but what needs to happen better on that play to get him down rather than turning that into an explosive?
Yeah, a handful of just a couple of technique changes through multiple players that could have really forced that thing to either be incomplete or at least catch tackle, right? Obviously, like, you would love to get that thing to third down right there, right? First series, you get a chance to play third down on the third play of the game, but you definitely don't want it to go for a 57-yard explosive pass. So it was a handful of errors of a couple guys that could have done their technique a little bit better and at least allowed us to play, 1st and 10. or even third down, and it happened to be a big play. I mean, obviously he is a great player, so give him credit for that play. Great throw and catch, but there's things that we can improve on. Coaches coach it better, players execute it to mitigate that.
Coming off the Rams game, you talked about trying to get Houston to more obvious passing downs. How do you think you did affect the quarterback, C.J. Stroud, in the game?
We got to get to more passing downs, honestly. That was a theme again, and that's a huge thing in this league. Like, if you don't, force people into third downs, second and longers, like, you're not going to be able to affect the quarterback like you like to when they're staying on schedule. So we got to continue to do a better job with that.
Where are you at right now, an inside linebacker now with Cody Simon? I mean, numbers are pretty thin there, so what is the challenge there for you and guys running your defense?
Yeah, we got a room of guys that can handle communication, execution. So it's, whoever's available, about getting them ready to go out there and execute at a high level.
When you break it down by downs, third and fourth down, you guys are one of the best defenses in the league this year, first and second. Much lower on that list. Is there anything you can see that's kind of causing you guys to be a much more effective defense relative to the rest of the league on third and fourth down rather than early downs?
I think it's a combination of plans are probably set up to allow players to go have success, and then they go out there and execute it, And so we just got to do that in every part of the game plan. So I would say it's always a combination of things. If we put them in bad positions, then they're losing before the down happens. As a coach, it's your job to be able to put them in the positions to have advantageous one-on-ones or, schematically take away what they want to get to. And then from there, players go execute. So it's a combination of all those things.
Last week you were very hard on yourself and your own game plan. Did you feel that way this game as well, or did you feel like you put the players in a better spot this week?
Not as hard. I feel like that last game last week was not good by me. I coined it as one of my worst. It's never perfect, but I wouldn't say I completely ruined the game for everybody like I said for the Rams game, which I felt. But there's a lot of things that, even if you feel like you set up a good plan or you're going to call it the right way, how do we coach it better so that the execution is at a higher level? So ultimately, I'm always responsible for. I think I said that to my wife. She asked me the same question. She said, "Did you mess it up again?" And and I said, "Well, yeah, I did. Like it always is. How could I have put everyone in a position to go out there and execute? Whether that was their psychological prep into the week, or maybe it was scheme, or maybe it was how I called it, or it was the technique that we really tried to sharpen throughout the week. What are the looks I gave them throughout the week? So I ultimately always have to reflect on wherever we fell short, how could I do better and control the variables that I can control to put these guys in positions to go out there and have success.
Atlanta's kind of fluctuated in their play this year, but they're coming off a pretty impressive win. What have you noticed from their offense as of late?
Yeah, they got two backs that can do a lot of damage, and honestly, it's a really good scheme. The run game it's unique, it's creative, and they're good at what they do. They have people that can make it happen. And then the pass game, they do a really good job of dressing things up, attacking coverages. It's complex presentation, yet to them, you can see the simplicity through execution. They have a lot of premier targets, I would say, and they got guys that have big route trees. Like, I feel like this is a crew that has a lot of people that can do damage on the third level, but also really good choice route runners. They can move the ball around. They can change who's getting those targets. So there's a lot that goes into stopping this offense. I got a lot of familiarity. I was with Kirk. Kirk is a really good quarterback. He knows where to go with the football. He can put on the money. He's got a cannon. So we got our hands full.
The run game is unique. What are you seeing schematically, or maybe from Robinson individually, that makes you say that? They're really good at having complementary run game. Really starts from the wide zone and then goes from there. And it's not just setting up, the wide zone to run mid zone or duo, but they have creativity off the wide zone that I would say it's pretty unique to them. And they do a really good job of coaching it and executing it. So, we're looking at it right now. It's not, there's certain concepts that they're running that is not
seeing around the league. So I think they have a lot of creativity over there, and they coach it really well.
What are some of the things you can take from being around Kirk for so long that you can use in your game plan?
Say that one more
What are
time.
some of the things that you can take from being around Kirk for so long that you can put into your game plan or help with your game plan?
Yeah, just having an idea of what he's really good at attacking or beating, or things that can maybe help him, force him to hold on to the ball a little bit longer. I'll probably keep that in house, but being around him, and it's not necessarily to say like being around him gives you those answers automatically. Just I think I've gone against him a lot, whether that was through practice or when we were on different teams, then going against him, that kind of familiarity can give you a head start, but ultimately every team's a different team. Kirk in Atlanta is different than Kirk in Minnesota, than Kirk in Washington. So you gotta take this year and what it looks like currently into the most consideration, and then kind of know in the back of your mind maybe what you've liked against him in the past and what you haven't.
I feel like you've played like a who's who of the league's best running backs this year, but what is it about Bijan that makes him so special?
Everything, man. Vision, strength, power, acceleration, can stop on a dime. You better be on point with the angles that you're taking, because if you take a bad angle, so I 6 foot in the ground and either make something out of nothing or turn it into a home run. And that's him as a runner. And then his ability to play as a receiver out of the backfield, split out, it's impressive. Like, he's a complete skill player. So he's definitely one of the best. He is a threat in the pass game and the run game, for all those reasons I pretty much just listed.
Other teams have to plan for Trey McBride. When you go against Kyle Pitts, right? He's coming up with 3 touchdown games as a tight end. What's the challenge there?
Just number one, he's talented. He's a difficult cover, and then when you have that kind of skill set as a tight end, just the ability for the offensive coordinator to be able to move you around and, get you touches through a variety of personnels from different spots. It can create, a lot of thought into how do we make sure that our matchups are correct just with where he's at. So, and then they can be very, fluid with how they use their personnels, because he's got such a wide skill set of being able to play tight end and being able to play wide receiver.
Talked about Calais on the special teams before, but to go and make plays and still play a role, I guess when a guy's on a roster, I'm assuming age isn't going to play a big role. I mean, if you're on the roster, it's whoever fits, that kind of thing. But, like, given his age and kind of where he is with playing time, do you have to be careful about that? Or are you surprised at all he still helps that much on special teams?
Yeah, I mean, field goal block is something he's done throughout his career. When you start getting up there in age and trying to save guys, you're really talking about the physically taxing plays and some of the running things that some of the skill guys go through. Calais was not on our field goal team. He's been on our field goal block team the whole season. He went on the field goal team earlier on in the season, and kind of just with the way the tight end position and some other groups have gone, he was thrust in that role. He's always done a good job. His length and determination, who he is as a pro, plays into it, why he's so good at both of those aspects. I was glad to see him get one. This guy's been working hard. Dante Stills was also part of that, and did a good job kind of double teaming a guy and getting our hands up.
Well, this is his second of the year. Obviously, the first one was brought back. But what does he do that makes him so good at that aspect of the game?
It's a good question. Obviously, God blessed him with tremendous physical attributes, length, things like that. For a guy his size, he does a really good job getting off on the ball. And he's done it so long and has so many reps at it that he understands like where he needs to strike the opponent in order to execute the scheme that's called for at that time. It's not just rush straight and get my hands up. leverage plays into it, get off plays into it, and I've never actually asked him, but I do know from watching the tape, he knows where the ball has to go. And I know I gave a geometry lesson a couple weeks ago, but that plays into it when you know where the ball's likely to go through either film study or just experience. It helps when you get your hand kind of in that spot. I mean, there's probably, I don't know, 8 to 10 kicks a year per team that if a guy had been a foot this way or a foot that way, that maybe gets impacted. So if you can kind of get into and take advantage of the plays that are there, he usually does, and it works out.
He joked earlier this season about how he has always loved special teams, and his first couple of years he'd be running down on kicks and blocking for kickoff returns, but he just can't quite do that kind of the same thing yet. But mentality-wise, is that something a player, once he kind of has about special teams, that it just never goes away?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that most guys kind of, if they're like that at the beginning, they maintain that throughout their career. Calais is a pro. Every single thing we've ever asked of him, in any facet that I'm aware of, he goes full speed ahead and tries to do it as best he can, and he's good at a lot of things.
How when you have so much turnover in terms of the kick return unit, how do you make sure that unit is or the kickoff returners especially, how do you make sure that unit is prepared to not have mistakes like the ones we saw in the first 2 kickoffs on Sunday?
So kind of a 2-part question. I'll answer it this way. I thought the guys up front blocked our best game. I thought that they really did a good job of knowing who Houston was deploying out there, and Houston has an excellent group. The second phase of that is the return aspect of it, and the 2 guys that started the game don't have a lot of experience. You're trying to catch up reps with practice, pre-practice, post-practice, all the different styles of kicks that we may see, and you're just trying to do the best you can to coach the reps that you see in practice, how to read kicks, how to read the returns once they get going. I think that was Corey's first time touching the ball in an NFL game, so you give him a little bit of grace, in that regard. It was a tough ball to handle. Those guys know, as the rest of our team, that the number one goal of the return unit is to get the ball back to the offense. That at least that needs to happen, and unfortunately for us on that first one, it didn't. Defense did a good job coming out and stopping them. I think they got a field goal out of that. But yeah, I mean, it's challenging when you're working a lot of guys. And we've had plenty of guys. I mean, I don't know how many teams have. I think we're at 8 now, guys that have touched the ball and kickoff return. But yeah, I mean, just trying to do the best we can. And those guys all want to do it well. But the ball security thing is real, and it's something that's really important to us.
What was the message to those guys after those incidents?
Well, after the second one, we felt like we needed somebody back there who'd done it a little bit more, which is why Andre went back in there, and unfortunately he was injured. It's not something that they're doing on purpose, and I didn't really think that it was careless in terms of like egregiously carrying the ball outside of the framework of their body. One was a catch, one was a carry. After the first one, I told Jalen, it's something that we can't have happen. Nobody in that stadium feels worse about it than he does at that moment, and just try and get him back to a place mentally that, hey, once we catch it, you got to secure it. This is what we're trying to do with the ball. And the same thing with Corey. I mean, it's kind of a sidewinding ball that got on him late, and I'm sure he was thinking about, am I in the end zone? Should we take a knee or not? And then it was kind of at that fringe mark, like, do you take a knee? Do you not take a knee? He was, fortunately for us, able to get out past the 20-yard line, and the kid runs hard, and he prepares.
You've been league for a long time. Do you allow yourself to think about your job security or your head coach's job security at any point during the season?
Yeah, I mean, you get more of those questions from kind of outside the building, right? Like people know what we do, and for a lot of people on the planet, they could go and have a great day at work and nobody knows. Or you could have a bad day at work and nobody knows. In our line of work, people know, you know, so there are questions that come up like that. I mean, I can't tell you how like hard we work in terms of like getting ready for an opponent. And if you spend time kind of veering off of that with whatever life may bring to you, it's not going to get focused back on the thing that's most important. And obviously it's Atlanta for this week, but you know, guys have jobs, guys have lives. Like there's real world stuff. It's not just come in, clock in, building, and leave, sleep, rinse, wash, repeat. I mean, there are other things that happen. So as much as we can, we try to focus on the things that are ahead of us, and you know, what's important now, scatter report, getting ready for the meetings, things like that. To answer your question, no, I mean, you can't allow yourself to kind of get there because you're distracting and taking away from things that that you can control, which is this week.
Are you concerned about your job security?
I think it would be hard to answer every question you might have, and I kind of see where this is headed. Yeah, I mean, no, I'm not. And the reason why is because, like, the only thing that matters is how we play against Atlanta this week, and whoever we play the following week, and however many games there are left. It's just not something that I allow myself to kind of think about, because it doesn't matter. Like, nothing's changing today, and until something changes, you just keep going.